Do you remember our very first lesson in this classroom?
How could I forget?
It was the same day Mrs. Crumb's glass eye fell out onto your desk, rolled off onto the floor and shattered.
Yeah. And that was just the beginning. The next lesson was with Mr. Fanshawe. I just couldn't believe it when his glass eye also fell out onto my desk, rolled off and shattered on the floor. I mean, glass eyes used to fall out all the time. But they rarely shattered.
Yes. That was incredibly unlucky. The shattering, I mean. But for it to happen a third time with Mr. Dickens. Well, that was just plain spooky.
What gets me is just how many of the teachers in the school had glass eyes. In fact, Mrs. Caldecott had at least two. But pretended she could see just fine.
There were so many skidding accidents as a result. Glass eyes were constantly rolling across the classroom floors. But as you say, they just never shattered like that before.
I remember it well. We always had plenty of marbles to play with in the playground up until the shattering. Some say it started when they put those metal spikes into the floor to stop the kids running. But we'll never know.
And then there was Mrs. Plastron. She had a glass jaw.
Yes. I always thought that was just a phrase for a weak jaw until I met Mrs. Plastron. I'll never forget when her glass jaw fell out onto my desk. Yes. You've guessed it. It slid across off onto the floor and shattered.
It took me years of therapy to get over that one. Her whole bottom jaw was missing for 5 days until they could make her new one.
And the art department very kindly tried to make her one out of old dry twigs. Anyway, it didn't work. The twigs just rubbed together whenever she spoke and small fires broke out in her mouth throughout the day. Some of the other teachers tried to take advantage and barbecue their lunch by holding hastily made kebabs near her mouth.
Resourceful, but not very considerate.
Well, that was all a long time ago.
Yes, but that's just why I brought up the subject in the first place.
What do you mean?
They found Mrs. Plastron's replacement glass jaw. She died many years ago, but they say her troubled spirit lives on in her glass jaw.
A bit like Lord Sauron in Lord of the Rings?
No, not really. Not quite as all-powerful and hell-bent on the destruction of Middle-earth.
Oh.
Although she did look a bit like a hobbit.